Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now the middle of May of 2023, and given that we're only getting closer to the Ahsoka Tano series, which by the way, was 100% written by Dave Filoni and had zero Kathleen Kennedy input, is I think one of the main reasons why a lot of fans really should be excited about this series in particular, because it will be the first show that Kathleen Kennedy really had no control over and Dave Filoni really had full control over a series. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And without further ado, let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that there's been a lot of different things happening with the Disney executives and their plan to really get Kathleen Kennedy out of Lucasfilm, properly speaking. We know that this is all, right now, heavily dependent on the success and/or failure of Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of Destiny, which is a little unfortunate because a lot of fans are on edge if the common moviegoers are going to make Indy 5 a box office hit. You know, I personally know a lot of non-Indiana Jones fans that really want to go ahead and see this movie just because Harrison Ford is reprising an older role. But when you look at stuff like this, alright, we know that there's a lot of aspects of the Disney executives right now and what they are trying to establish with the Star Wars lore and everything related to that. However, on top of all of this, what's really intriguing has a lot to do with the fact that both John and Dave are preparing to develop many new Star Wars stories that will be announced by this fall. Now, recently, Disney CEO Bob Iger was able to talk more about his time working with Kathleen Kennedy and confirm something big involving her. Iger was able to state the following in a recent interview where he actually went on to state the following. We have a full slate of Star Wars movies and series arriving to the community, and we wanted to make sure that what we were putting out was going to be under quality control to ensure fan interest. Part of this control we felt that we needed for others to produce these projects. We have been with Kathy for a long time now, and we decided that we will not be including her as a producer on the majority of these upcoming projects that we are preparing to announce in the coming months. We felt this was the best approach on a business level to guarantee our success with different shows under different leadership and isolation for each given series or movie. By having multiple producers leading these projects, we have full trust in upping our chances of providing quality content instead of only one overseeing these projects as they are going through these development phases. So guys, basically what Bob Iger is saying, so far, before I get to the next thing that he has to say, is that they are switching over from focusing on one producer leading all these shows to multiple producers, and this is absolutely the beginning of the end of Kathleen Kennedy. This is probably the biggest step that Bob Iger really put out there, that this is indeed pretty much a momentary thing that's going to really showcase exactly what is happening with Kathleen Kennedy right now. Now, we know that given that there's a lot of things going on between Iger and Kathleen Kennedy, they're kind of bouncing back and forth between everything related to Star Wars, right? How they should develop these movies, how often they should come out. We know that Kathleen Kennedy wants a Star Wars movie every, give or take, 3, maybe 2 years. Meanwhile, Bob Iger wants a Star Wars movie on an annual basis, every single year. Now look, I'm all up for a Star Wars movie every single year, and that's fine and all, but you have to make them very quality driven. They can't just be, pumped out there to the audience just to accept them for what they are. They have to be very well made. Especially if they're movies, by the way, because that's when, Disney is really putting a lot of money into the production of these actual projects. So, moving on to the next thing here, he goes on to elaborate further. This is in no way anything personal with Miss Kennedy, but nothing more than a business move. That we felt personal with Miss Kennedy, but nothing, of course, on top of that was absolutely necessary. It was time to move on to different creatives to lead multiple installments with this specific brand that we feel is a very complex brand to understand the audience with just one producer. We weren't willing to unveil who these producers are just yet that will be leading said projects, but we have great confidence that they will do a superb job at delivering what fans expect to see in this franchise. We are personally so honored to be doing what we can to satisfy the fans around the world. Now, before I get to the other thing about what's going on with everything related to Bob Iger, is that you know that Bob Iger really wants to leave behind a great legacy. I don't know if you guys knew this, but basically what he wants to do is he wants to create a legacy of his own to really satisfy a lot of Star Wars fans. He wants to do this before he leaves by 2024, and we're going to be talking about that perhaps a little bit later. We learned a couple of things about that. We haven't really touched on that in quite a number of months now, but he does plan on leaving by 2024 for a specific reason. We'll talk about that at another time. Now, the thing about this that I think a lot of fans need to realize is that this is absolutely great news. This is probably the biggest realization that Kathleen Kennedy really has no creative power at all anymore, besides Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. So we're going to be getting different producers from Mando Season 4, Ahsoka Season 2, all these upcoming shows that are not necessarily releasing in 2023, alright? So that's great. That's really a great start. It just goes to show you that Bob Iger is trying to do whatever he can to really ensure that Star Wars will thrive and survive and become something better than it ever was before. Now look, I know a lot of fans are very skeptical about anything because a lot of fans may see that Star Wars is really kind of unfixable at this point, that you really can't repair the damage. I beg to differ, alright? In a respectful way, I'm not really going against anybody's opinion in a harsh way here, but I really do beg to differ. If they can really just put their heart and soul into this thing, they can, and they can deliver great content, trust me. I think if you look at Rogue One, for example, that's probably one of the greatest examples that was a great movie. It probably had the most common sense in a Star Wars movie under Disney out of all of them. More than Solo, more than the sequel movies, and anything related to it in that sense. Rogue One, I believe, had common sense, didn't kind of play around with playing things safe or anything like that. They just created a very good story, and the reason being, Tony Gilroy. This is why a lot of fans out there love Andor, but there's also a lot of fans that dislike Andor because it's so different than traditional Star Wars, but you can't deny the fact that Tony Gilroy is a fantastic storyteller. And even though Andor may come across as boring to many people, and that's fine, you gotta accept that the storytelling, like the actual way it's crafted, regardless of the story, Tony Gilroy knows, how Star Wars needs to be handled. And that's why the good news is that Tony Gilroy is getting a lot more, offers to pretty much develop new Star Wars shows, and even a Star Wars movie with Dave Filoni. So anyways, on top of this, guys, I'm very much intrigued to hear what you all have to say about the whole Bob Iger and Kathy Kennedy situation, and how this is indeed the beginning of the end for her over at Lucasfilm. So guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.